Tonight, something is going to happen in your yard that you have never seen. Not because it is rare, because it happens in complete darkness, out of sight, in the spaces you cannot see into from your window. The cardinal that was at your feeder 20 minutes ago is somewhere right now. Somewhere specific, somewhere it chose deliberately, using criteria you have probably never thought about. The chickadee that moved through your maple all morning is doing something tonight that should not be physiologically possible for an animal its size. And somewhere above your roof, on certain nights, something is happening at a scale that most people never fully grasp, even when someone explains it to them. Every evening, your yard empties in under 20 minutes. The feeders go still, the branches go quiet, and most people assume the birds are simply somewhere nearby, roosting vaguely in trees, doing whatever birds do when humans stop watching. The reality is far more specific than that, far more deliberate, and in some cases, far stranger than most people realize. Welcome to Bird Minds. Tonight, we are going into the dark, into what your birds actually do between dusk and dawn. Stay until the very end, because the last thing we cover happens directly above your house on certain nights each spring and fall, and the scale of it will genuinely stop you. The northern cardinal is one of the easiest backyard birds to track at dusk if you know what to watch for. In the hour before sunset, a male cardinal begins a behavior most people never notice because it looks, from a distance, like the bird is simply moving around the yard. But it is not moving randomly. It is making a deliberate transition from the open foraging spaces of the day to the specific, carefully chosen roosting location it will use for the night. Cardinals roost in dense vegetation, not loosely dense, specifically dense, the kind of interior tangle that a predator cannot easily penetrate and that an owl cannot see into from above. A thick holly bush, the deep interior of an arborvitae hedge, a tangle of vines against a fence that looks impenetrable from the outside. He chooses the densest available cover, not primarily for warmth, but for concealment. A sleeping bird is a vulnerable bird. It cannot monitor all directions simultaneously. It cannot react at full speed. Dense vegetation is the closest thing to invisibility a cardinal can achieve while unconscious, and he will return to the same roosting site night after night, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for an entire season. If you have a thick holly or dense evergreen hedge in your yard, there is a reasonable chance a cardinal has been sleeping in it every night this winter without you ever knowing. Cavity nesting species, chickadees, nuthatches, small woodpeckers have an option the cardinal does not. They can disappear inside enclosed spaces entirely. Old woodpecker holes, gaps in tree bark, nest boxes that sit empty through the breeding season but serve a completely different function the rest of the year. A bird inside a cavity is not just hidden, it is thermally enclosed. The walls trap body heat and reduce heat loss in ways that open roosting in even the densest shrub cannot replicate. On cold nights, the difference between roosting in a cavity and roosting in open vegetation can be the difference between surviving until morning and not. If you have nest boxes in your yard that nothing nested in this breeding season, do not take them down in fall. They are being used right now, just not for nesting. Now here is where the chickadee's nighttime strategy becomes genuinely extraordinary. On cold nights, and in the northern United States, cold means anything below freezing. Black-capped chickadees do something that should not be possible for an animal weighing 11 grams. They deliberately lower their own body temperature, not accidentally, not as a sign of distress, deliberately. Researchers studying chickadee thermoregulation found that on cold nights, chickadees enter a state called regulated hypothermia, a controlled reduction of body temperature by up to 22 degrees Fahrenheit below their normal daytime level. Their metabolism slows dramatically, their heart rate drops. They are not fully asleep in the way we understand sleep. They are closer to a controlled shutdown, conserving enough energy to survive temperatures that would otherwise require burning fat reserves they simply cannot afford to lose. 11 grams, roughly the weight of 2 pennies. On a cold winter night, the energy budget of that tiny bird is so tight that the difference between making it to morning and not comes down to whether it can reduce its metabolic demand enough during the hours when foraging is impossible. Regulated hypothermia is not a curiosity. It is the physiological mechanism that allows chickadees raised to survive winters that should kill animals of their size. And when the sun rises and temperatures begin to climb, the chickadee reverses the process, gradually warming back to full operating temperature, emerging from its cavity and appearing at your feeder as if nothing remarkable happened during the night, which, from its perspective, is probably accurate. It does this every night. It has always done this. The extraordinary is just Tuesday for a chickadee. Some of the most surprising nighttime behavior in your yard involves species you would never expect to be social sleepers. The eastern bluebird is one of the most striking examples. During breeding season, a male bluebird defends his nest box aggressively. He will not tolerate another male within his territory. Close approach triggers immediate confrontation. The territorial boundaries he maintains are enforced with real physical intensity. But in winter, that same bluebird will squeeze into a nest box with up to a dozen other bluebirds and sleep pressed against them through the night. The territorial rules of the breeding season are entirely suspended. The calculation in winter is simple and absolute. Shared body heat means survival. Individual space means potential death. Researchers have documented nest boxes in the eastern United States containing 12 to 15 bluebirds on a single cold night. Birds that during the day would not perch within 30 feet of each other, sharing a 6-inch cavity without apparent conflict, because the thing that matters most changed, and the behavior changed with it. What this tells you about your yard is specific and practical. The nest boxes and dense shrubs you maintain are not just breeding infrastructure, they are survival infrastructure. On the coldest nights of winter, those structures are the difference between birds that wake up in your yard tomorrow morning and birds that do not. There is something worth sitting with here before we get to the final section. The yard you look at through your window at midnight, dark, still, apparently empty, is not empty. It is full of birds in a state of active, distributed awareness, hidden in cavities and dense shrubs and the thick inner branches of evergreens. Some of them running their metabolism at a fraction of normal. Some of them sharing warmth in spaces too small to believe they all fit. Some of them sleeping with one hemisphere of the brain while the other remains alert. A state researchers call unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, documented across multiple bird species that allows a bird to rest while maintaining enough awareness to respond to a predator in a fraction of a second. The great horned owl calling from your oak at 10 at night is being heard by every bird roosting within range. The alarm call of a robin flushed by a cat at midnight travels to sleeping chickadees in their cavities nearby. The nighttime yard has a sensory network running through it even when it looks completely still. They are there. You simply cannot see them, and they are paying far more attention to the night than you are. Now here is the part that stops most people. On certain nights in spring and fall, and this is happening above your house right now if the season is right, the sky fills with birds. Not dozens, not hundreds. On peak migration nights in late April and early May, and again in September and October, the number of birds crossing over a single point in the eastern United States in a single night can reach into the millions. These are not exotic species from distant places. The wood thrush that spent last summer singing from your yard left in October and has been in Central America since then. Right now, in late April, it is flying north at night directly above your house. The ruby-throated hummingbird that will arrive at your feeder in May crossed the Gulf of Mexico in a single 900-mile non-stop flight, navigating by stars and magnetic field, burning fat reserves equivalent to a person running back-to-back marathons. Cornell Labs' Birdcast Migration Monitoring System tracks this in real time using weather radar. On a peak migration night, the radar image of the eastern United States shows what looks like an enormous weather system moving northward. Not rain, not clouds, birds. The biological mass of migration is large enough to return radar signals that meteorologists had to learn to distinguish from precipitation. This is happening above your house, above your ordinary suburban street, above the empty feeder and the still branches and the yard that looks looks, from inside, like it contains nothing at all. The birds that will spend this summer in your yard, singing from your trees, feeding from your feeders, raising young in your hedges, are passing over you right now in darkness, navigating a continent by light they can see that you cannot, following paths their ancestors traveled for millions of years. The yard goes quiet at dusk, the feeders empty, the branches go still. But what you are looking at when you see that empty yard is not absence. It is concealment. The cardinal is in your holly bush. The chickadee is in the woodpecker hole in the oak, its body temperature dropping, its metabolism pulling back to the minimum required to survive until morning. The bluebirds you have not seen since late afternoon are packed into the nest box near your fence, sharing heat through a night that would be dangerous to face alone. And somewhere above your roofline, birds you will not see until May are passing through in their thousands. This happens every night. You have been living beside it for years without knowing the full shape of it. The next time your yard goes quiet at dusk, the next time the feeder empties and the branches go still and the evening closes in, you will know that the birds have not gone anywhere. They have just moved into the part of their lives you have never been able to see. And it is every bit as extraordinary as the part you can. Tell me in the comments, have you ever heard birds singing in the middle of the night in your yard, or noticed something moving through after dark that surprised you? I want to hear what you saw. I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.